Under the hot studio lamps, stage 12 buzzed like a beehive. Dean Martin stood at the edge of the saloon set, script in one hand, jacket tight across his shoulders. In his inside pocket, a single folded sheet of paper pressed against his heart. He'd held contracts, gold records, hotel keys. He never thought one thin page could scare him more than all of them put together. Around him, crew dragged cables, checked mics, joked about one more for the king of cool. On the far wall, giant photos showed the man they wanted tonight, drink in hand, arm around John Wayne, always laughing. The script in Dean's fingers matched those pictures. Easy gags about staying out late, a tipsy sheriff sketch, all shine and no bruise. No one here knew what the doctor had written on that paper. No one knew his grandson was in the audience, watching. Dean drew a shallow breath. If this was goodbye, was this really how he wanted it told? The first run-through started with a shout from somewhere in the dark seats. "Rolling for rehearsal. Let's see that sheriff walk, Mr. Martin." Dean walked up the short wooden steps and into the fake street. The saloon doors behind him were fresh paint and thin pine, but when they swung, they sounded close enough to the old days in old Tucson. A warm square of light hit his chest. A prop bottle waited on a high table, label turned to camera. The script pages were tucked in his belt. All he had to do, they'd told him, was stumble, wink, and sell the myth one more time. He reached for the bottle, wrapped his fingers round the glass, and heard his lungs whistle. The paper in his pocket crackled. The line on the page was simple, a cute wisecrack about drinking for courage. His tongue knew it, his body didn't move. "No," he said. The word came out low, almost calm. Stage chatter died. A boom mic froze above him. From the control room window, Frank Delaney leaned over the rail. "Dean, what's the problem? We're just blocking." Dean set the bottle down. It made a dull tap that carried to the back row. "I don't want to tell you lies about this," he said. "I want to tell you the truth." A face full of freckles quickly squicked under the gaze. The crew backed away from Frank. The sound man, Tooby, crawled back into the dark. "You want a drunk sheriff?" he told him. "You've got one. Let me show you the truth of it." Backstage, the air changed as soon as the saloon doors swung shut behind Dean. The roar of the stage dimmed to a dull thud through the wall, like a party he'd already left. Concrete floor under his boots, bleach and coffee in the air. No applause out here. Frank caught up first. "Dean, we've got affiliates on the phone, sponsors, a live audience coming in. You can't just walk off a bit because you don't like the joke." Dean leaned against a metal light stand. "It's not that I don't like it," he said. "It's that it's fake." From the far end of the hall, Ray Navarro hurried over, headset crooked, face lined from 3 decades of late nights. "Frank, slow down," he muttered. "Let's hear him." That small sentence bought Dean a breath. He took it, shallow as it was. "You want me to play the happy drunk," Dean said. "The guy who always lands on his feet. You know where I was when my boy hit that mountain?" Ray blinked. "Dino's crash?" "In a bar," Dean answered. "Couldn't stand the house, couldn't stand being sober with my own head. They told me in the parking lot. I could smell beer on my shirt while they said my son was gone." Silence draped over the 3 men. A golf cart hummed past at the far end, tires squeaking. Frank shifted. "People don't tune in for that. They want to remember the good times. We all do." "Yeah," Dean said, "and my daughter remembers a father who missed half her life chasing a punchline with a drink in his hand." Ray's eyes dropped to Dean's shaking fingers. "Maybe," the director said softly,
The good times aren't the full story anymore. Frank frowned, yet a small crack had opened. Backstage shifted. Down the corridor, Dean headed for his door, the old boots heavy on concrete. The noise from the stage thumped through the walls like a slow heart. When he pushed into his dressing room, the light felt softer, but the air still seemed thin. Joey sat on the couch under the mirror, sneakers kicked off, a math book open on his knees. Beside him, a woman in a gray suit held a small notepad, pen resting against her thumb. Her name tag read Carol Hines, Family Services. She rose halfway when Dean entered, then chose to stay seated, eyes careful. "Hope we're not in the way," she said. Her voice carried no heat, only that flat, official calm he remembered from courtrooms. "Just observing Mr. Martin's routine with Joey before the show." Joey looked up, grinned quick, then checked his grandfather's face and let the smile fade. "You okay, Gramps?" he asked. Dean eased himself into the chair by the tiny sink, jacket pulling tight where the paper lay. His chest ached from the walk, a fine burn with each breath. "Long day already," he said, aiming the words at Joey but letting Carol hear them too. She jotted something, eyes flicking from Dean's hands to the untouched soda on the table. No glass, no bottle, just clear fizz in plastic. "We like to see structure, schoolwork, steady meals, safe evenings." Dean nodded once. He knew what she didn't say, a stable guardian, no public stumbles, no stories the aunt's lawyer could wave in front of a judge. The script on his lap suddenly felt like part of that test. If he played the clown again, laughing through fake drinks, Carol would write that down, and some man in robes might agree Joey belonged somewhere else. He swallowed. A knock came, 3 short taps on the dressing room door before Ray pushed it open. "They want one more pass at the sheriff bit," he said, "just to settle cameras." His eyes flicked toward Carol, then back to Dean. "You up for it?" On the walk to center stage, Joey's voice followed from the doorway. "I'll be watching, Gramps." That small sentence sat on Dean's shoulders heavier than any wardrobe coat. When he stepped into the wash of light again, the fake street looked harsher, like someone had turned the color up too high. Near the painted hitching post, the prop man had set out the bottle and a tin cup. The glass shone under the lamps, amber liquor catching highlights that weren't real. Dean stopped beside it, hearing the soft whir of cameras lining up their marks. Frank's voice floated from the dark seats. "Okay, Dean, give us that classic drunk walk. Little wobble, big charm." Laughter trickled from a few crew members who hadn't heard the hallway talk. Dean reached for the bottle. His fingers didn't close smooth and sure. They curled slow, thumb missing the neck the first time. The tremor surprised him, a small shake that ran from his knuckles up into his ribs. The sound of glass kissing metal when he finally lifted it seemed loud as a gunshot. "This is how you think it looks," he said, taking 2 exaggerated comic steps, shoulders rolling. Then he stopped, set the bottle down, and let his frame sag the way it used to at 2 in the morning when nobody was watching. He tried to straighten, failed once, then used the table edge like a man afraid his legs might fold. From the front row, Tommy Russo whispered, "My old man walked like that back then." Ray called a break before anyone could speak from the dark seats. 10 minutes, he shouted, then stepped up onto the set. He kept his tone light. "Band room, Dean, now." The band room sat behind a heavy fire door, far from the painted street and hot lamps. Music stands leaned in crooked rows, and half the chairs were empty. A stale smell of coffee and brass oil hung in the air. It felt like the only quiet pocket in the whole building. Tommy Russo slipped in after them, baseball cap turned backwards, guitar case bumping his knee. I asked to sit in, he said. Hope that's all right. Dean dropped onto a folding chair. His lungs ticked, the tiny rattle under his ribs. You saw it out there? I can't sell the cartoon drunk anymore. Not when my hand shakes like that. Tommy leaned his guitar against the wall. My dad used to hide bottles in the laundry, he said. I know the second walk you did. That one hurt to watch. Ray rubbed his temples. The network wants light, he said quietly. Nostalgia, fun, no trouble with standards and practices. But we can't unsee what you just did. He reached for the script, flipped to the sheriff pages, and pulled a pen from his shirt. What if we trim the cheap stuff, he offered. Cut a few of the gags, then we give you a short, straight minute before the song. No jokes, just you talking. Tommy nodded. I'll follow your lead on stage. If you go serious, I go serious. It wasn't perfect. Still, for the first time that day, Dean felt two people shift closer to his side, not the network's. For an old crooner, that small company felt like armor against bright lies.
The hallway back to his dressing room felt longer now, like somebody had stretched it while he was gone. Dean's legs ached with each step, yet he kept the folded paper in his pocket, fingers brushing it through the cloth. Inside, Joey still sat on the couch, homework closed this time. Carol Hines had moved to the small chair near the door, file open on her knees. She looked up, took in his face, and stayed quiet. Dean shut the door halfway, not all the way. He wanted a bit of privacy, but he knew better than to shut people out completely anymore. Gramps? Joey asked. You look tired. Dean eased down beside him. He felt afraid. I need to tell you something, and I should have said it sooner. Joey's fingers curled on the math book cover. Carol's pen hovered above her notes. Dean reached into his jacket and pulled out the folded sheet. The edges were worn now from rubbing. He laid it across his knee and opened it, slow, like a photograph that might sting. This came from the doctor. My lungs aren't strong anymore. They've taken a lot of smoke, a lot of late nights. I don't know how long I've got, kid. Joey's jaw tightened. Are you sick like Dad was? Different kind, Dean answered. But it means I can't pretend forever. I wasted years pouring drinks on pain, missed your dad's last show because I was hiding in a bar. I won't lie to you on top of that. He let the words sit. Carol set a pen down, eyes softer now. I'm trying to make tonight count, not for ratings, for you. Joey nodded once, blinking fast, and slid his small hand into his grandfather's. When the red light finally blinked on above camera one, Dean stood in the center of the fake street, hat brim low, chest tight. The crowd in the seats had no idea anything had changed. To them, it was just another TV special, a chance to see the old crooner crack wise and sing the hits. He could feel the paper in his pocket like a small, hidden weight. Inside the first few rows, Joey sat between Carol and a bored warm-up comic who'd just finished working the house. His feet barely reached the floor. When the band hit a cue, Joey leaned forward, hands locked on the rail. Carol watched him as much as she watched the stage. She'd seen shows for children in foster care, school assemblies, magic tricks. She'd never seen a boy study his grandfather like this. Up in the control booth, Frank slapped his palm on the console. Let's have that gag nice and tight, he said into his headset. No surprises. Camera 2 be ready for the stumble.
Ray stood beside him, eyes on Tommy's mark, not the script. Without looking away, he reached down and flipped the teleprompter feed off. The scrolling words froze mid-joke. "We've got a minor glitch," he said dryly. "Dean can carry it." Beneath the lamps, Dean heard Ray's voice in his ear. "We're live." The script should have been rolling in front of Lenz. Instead, Glass waited. Dean picked up the bottle, set it on the floor, out of frame. A murmur went through the crowd. "I spent a lifetime making this look funny," he said. It wasn't. No cue told him what to say next. He pictured Joey's hand in his, then began to talk about nights he couldn't remember and mornings he'd give anything to forget.
For a long moment after Dean finished, nobody moved. He had talked past the slot printed on the rundown, told stories that never touched the cue cards, then slipped into a low, bare verse of an old trail song. The last note faded into the rafters. No laugh track followed, only echo and the hiss of air above. Down in front, Joey was the first to rise, his thin frame straightened, hands coming together in a clap. One beat later, the sounds spread. A few people stood, then whole rows pushed to their feet until the auditorium was a wall of faces and hands, the noise rolling over the set like surf. Up in the booth, Frank stabbed at the talkback button. "Go to commercial," he snapped. Ray folded his arms, kept his gaze on the floor below, and didn't relay the order. Camera lights stayed red. The moment held. Tommy stepped out from the wings, hat in hand. He didn't go to his own mark. He walked straight to Dean, right in the center of the street, and pulled him into a rough hug. "Took guts, old man," he said close to Dean's ear, but the nearby mic caught enough that folks in the seats heard it. "My dad never said a word. You just did." Dean eased back, eyes wet. He patted his jacket, then reached into his pocket, not for the medical page, but for a silver lighter burnished from years in smoky rooms. The flame tool that had lit cigarettes sat cold in his palm. "Joey," he called, voice breaking. "Come here, son." The boy climbed the steps, trembling. Dean pressed the lighter into his hand. "You carry this," he said. "I'm done needing it." The crowd roared again, louder than any joke. By the time summer heat settled over the valley, the night on Stage 12 had taken on a life of its own. Clips from the special kept popping up everywhere. Morning shows ran the final song under soft headlines about Dean Martin's bravest performance. Late-night hosts replayed the moment he set the bottle on the floor and called it what it was. Even sports radio in Cleveland argued about whether a man had the right to change his image that late in the game. In Dean's small den at home, the volume stayed low. He watched one replay with Joey curled against his side, the boy's hair tickling his arm. Outside the window, sprinklers clicked in the yard. Inside, the lighter sat on the shelf above the television, silver face catching stray light every time the screen flashed. Letters began to arrive, stacks of them, thick with foreign stamps and shaky handwriting. Men wrote from Ohio, from Yorkshire, from Nova Scotia. They talked about fathers who never said sorry, grandfathers who smelled like whiskey and aftershave, brothers who finally put down the glass. Women wrote about the sound of a slammed door and how hearing a joke man talk plain gave them something solid to hand their sons. NBC had wanted an easy nostalgia trip. Instead, viewers from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and farther sent thanks for telling the truth on live TV. A few weeks after the broadcast, Dean sat in a quiet courtroom, Joey on one side, Carol on the other. The judge skimmed Carol's report.
pausing at a line about a clear, public commitment to sobriety and honesty witnessed by millions. The gavel hit wood. "Guardianship remains with Mr. Martin," the judge said. Joey's fingers gripped Dean's sleeve and didn't let go all day.
On television, legends usually leave the way they arrived, framed by lights, wrapped in easy stories, every rough edge hidden just outside the shot. Dean Martin didn't do that. On that western street, with painted boards and plastic whiskey, an old crooner used the last of his strength and fame to knock a hole in the comfortable lie he'd helped sell. He didn't expose his diagnosis on air, didn't ask for pity. He did something braver for a man in his line of work. He told the truth about what the jokes had cost, then handed the choice to everyone watching. Some men in living rooms laughed it off, others went quiet. A few set a glass down and never picked it back up. And one boy, sitting 3 rows from the stage with his feet not yet touching the floor, saw his grandfather as more than a smooth smile. He saw a man owning the wreckage, standing anyway. That's the real power of what happened in that studio. Dean didn't win alone. A director cut the prompter, a younger singer stepped aside, a caseworker listened from the shadows. Together, they turned one TV special into a small act of mercy for every family that had ever bled over a bottle. For you, watching years later, the lesson is simple and hard at the same time. Real courage isn't never falling, it's standing back up where everyone can see the bruises. Real cool isn't the full glass, it's the steady hand that pushes it away in front of your kids. If this story stirred something in you, tell me your city or country in the comments and share it with someone who grew up on these old movies. For more Dean Martin Hollywood stories, subscribe and stay close right here.